On the way, Gilbert O'Sullivan.
The sound
of Sussex. Together we can make a difference. BBC Radio Sussex.
Clair, the moment I met you, I swear I felt as if something somewhere had happened to me, which I couldn't see. And then the moment I met you again, I knew in my heart that we were friends. It had to be so, it couldn't be no, but try as hard as I might do, I don't know why. And you get to me in a way I can't describe. Words mean so little when you look up and smile. I don't care what people say, to me you're more than a child. Oh Claire, 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 if ever a moment so rare was captured for all to compare, that moment is you in all that you do. But why, in spite of our age difference, do I cry? Each time I leave you I feel I could die. Nothing means more to me than hearing you say, I'm going to marry you. Will you marry me, Uncle Ray? Oh Claire, Claire. Claire, I've told you before, don't you dare get back into bed. Can't you see that it's late? No, you can't have a drink. Oh, alright then, but wait just a bit while I, in an effort to babysit, catch up my breath, what there is left of it. You can be murder at this hour of the day, but in the morning this hour would seem a lifetime away. Oh Claire, Claire. Oh Claire.
And that lovely giggle at the end. Oh, it still sounds delightful, doesn't it? Clair, former #1 record for my guest this morning, Gilbert O'Sullivan. Hello, Gilbert.
Yeah, good morning, Graham.
Good morning to you. Well, there is one from the Essential Collection, which I know has just been released, and wow, it's got about over 40 tracks on it, hasn't it, including Clair. And because Clair, just to remind people if they don't know, was your manager's daughter, Gordon Mills's daughter, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the thing about Claire, what makes it different to, if not all my other songs, is the fact that it was written about somebody. Because I used to babysit for him. Gordon Mills managed me, and his wife used to cook meals for me. And they lived on private estate in Surrey, in Weybridge, as you know, St. George's Hills area. Mm. And so occasionally they'd be going off to some big do, and they say, Ray, can you babysit? So I babysit, and Claire was the one that kind of got up a lot of the time. But the nice thing about this song is that Gordon, not many people know this, he was the harmonica champion of Wales all those years and years and years ago, and he does the harmonica solo, and of course Claire is the one who laughs at the end. So, and the fact that it's about her, and I did it as a tribute to the parents anyway, and so it makes it very special.
Very much so. What made her giggle? Was it because of her dad playing
on the record?
Yeah.
Well, I did, she was just, she's a bundle of joy, Claire. She was, and it was very easy in the studio to get her to giggle.
Oh, lovely. And there's an Uncle Ray reference in there because, of course, Raymond is your real name, isn't it?
Yeah, again, that ties in with what the song is about. As I say, it's about a real person, so I wouldn't it wouldn't make sense to have a made-up name. So I kind of kept it as real as could be. And I always tell people that at the very end of the record, you can hear sort of his wife frying in the background.
For younger people who may be not as aware of your music as other part,
we
the
go
other part
back a
of our
long way,
audience.
Graham.
Oh, well, what I thought we'd do is just play a montage of some of your greatest hits, which, of course, are all on this Essential collection. And we can talk about some of those as the show goes on. So sit back and listen, and we'll listen with pride, Gilbert. Here they come.
Told you once before, and I won't tell you no more. Get down, get down, get down. No matter how I try, I just can't say goodbye. When they freed him, it so relieved him. He just went through Wagaday. More than a complete disaster, even from the start. What could it be? It's matrimony. Have you ever wondered just what it is? More perhaps than just a moment of bliss. Tell me what's in a kiss. Nothing older than time, nothing sweeter than wine, nothing physically, recklessly, hopelessly blind, nothing I couldn't say, nothing quite cost today, nothing rhyme. Alone again, naturally.
Yes, all sung and written by my guest this morning, who is Gilbert O'Sullivan, of course. And, you know, Gilbert, Alone Again, Naturally, must have given you such a buzz, because that was a US #1, wasn't it?
Well, the irony is when it came out, it was received over here as just another nice little ditty, could be a hit kind of routine. And what I like about that situation is the fact that when it was recorded with another song called Out of the Question. And in those days, artists you did sort of 2 tracks in 3 hours, unlike 3 months or 3 years to make an album. So it's everybody thought Out of the Question was the most commercial. People liked Alone Again, thought, yeah, it's okay and stuff. But in the end, Gordon thought, because even if it wasn't as commercial as the other song, let's go with it. But as I say, the people, the reviews in England were just, nobody went overboard about it. But once it took off in America, then it's actually become their record, because it was #1 for something like 6 weeks. So it makes it very special for them. But I'm proud of the song, in particular, the amount of cover versions I seem to be getting of it, which is wonderful.
Yes, and you do a duet. Well, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, a little duet you've done recently. There was one song, one hit song missing from that montage. You probably don't know which one it was, but I'm going to play it at the end, because it's always been one of my favourites, and I think very underplayed. So you might like to guess what that might be. You were talking about living in our area, but in fact you moved to Jersey. That's where you are now. Is that right?
Yeah, we moved there to cut a long story short, I left England, where I lived next down the road from Gordon, because Tom Jones lived in there, and Gilbert lived there, and Gordon lived there, and then I lived there. And so when I broke up with Gordon Mills, very sad the situation was, in order to be able to afford the costs of the court case had I lost. And one should always be aware that you don't always win these things, and if you lose, you could have a lot of money to pay. We were able to move to Ireland, where tax exemption was allowed for authors and writers, tax-free. So that allowed me to stay in Ireland for those few years until everything was resolved on the court case. And after that, we had the choice of moving back to Weybridge in Surrey, or having lived in Ireland in a kind of country house rural with sheep and cows, we decided that we'd like to go somewhere else. So Jersey was the ideal place, and with 2 young children at school age, no overcrowding in Jersey. It's a very healthy environment, lovely beaches. Have you been there?
A long time ago, but yes, I remember it well, and very lovely indeed.
It's a wonderful place to raise children. As I say, no overcrowding in the schools, and so.
And how's it been with the COVID situation there?
Well, again, unlike the UK, we're lucky here that the hospitals aren't overcrowded. There are very few cases. They're dealing with it in the way that they're trying to deal with it in the UK. But as I say, we're lucky here, and it's just because it's a small island with a population of just 100,000, it is not as serious as we're seeing in the UK.
But I think people in Jersey were worried, pre-lockdown, about people going over and spreading it, weren't they?
Well, there's always that. But what do they call it? Track and trace. They've been really good in Jersey in dealing with that, with people coming into the island. And it's touch wood, and we're coming out of lockdown slowly, as we are in the UK. So I think everybody's having to deal with it as best they can, and it's a global situation, it's not just for us. And our hats go off, obviously, to all the hospital staff, NHS care workers who do a fantastic job. It's brilliant what they do.
Absolutely. Just getting back to that court case, I don't know whether you're able to talk about it, but did it end favourably for you?
Well, what I didn't like about the court case was that in the tabloid version of it, it's about money. And it was never about money. Well, what it was, Gordon Mills managed me. And when he managed me in 1970, I already had a publishing agreement with a company called April Music. And there was 2 more years left of that. So when Gordon came on the scene in 69, 70, he said that we have to do some kind of deal on the publishing, which he did for the remaining 2 years. But because just before he did that, and while I was with April Music, they were starting to give writers their own share of give them their own companies. So in other words, you'd have O'Sullivan songs within the April Music. In other words, as well as your writer's share of income, you would get an element of the publisher's share. So that was a new thing going. So I said to Gordon, it's been offered to me by April. Would you give it to me? And he said, because I like the idea of having an interest in my songs. And Gordon said, well, not now. He said, if you're successful, I'll give it to you. So as the years went by, 72, 73, I would occasionally say to him or his accountant or his managing director, and he was on the interest in my songs. And yeah, don't worry, you're getting it. And so when Gordon and I decided to break up, and the reason we decided to break up was because I wanted to work with other producers. People like Rod Stewart were working with Tom Dowd in America, Atlantic Crossing. And I said to Gordon, because we were going through kind of a lean time in terms of songs, he produced the songs, of course, and had great success. But I was ambitious and motivated and wanted to move on. And I said to Gordon, look, you'll still manage me, but if we let another producer come on, it would be good for us. But Gordon was adamant that if he didn't produce it, that was it. So I had to make the decision, do I stick with Gordon or do I make the break? And I decided to make the break. And when I had a meeting with Gordon to leave, I was shook hands. I thought it was very amicable how we would break up. I said to him, well, I still get that interest in my songs. And he said, of course, you can go into the office, because this was on the weekend, and you go into the office next week and they'll sort it out. So with my wife, I went in on the following Monday, and basically I was told to F off. And so that's the reason I then came out of that office. I didn't know any lawyers, but I knew Gary Davison, who was the son of Harold Davison, who was a very big impresario in those days.
Looked after Frank Sinatra, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gary, his son, I knew because he'd been on the road with me when we toured. So I said to Gary, can you help me out with a lawyer? I really want to sort this out. So he did. So I went with Harold Davison's lawyers, Amherst, Brown, Martin and Nicholson. So I just said to them, look, I just want the interest in my songs, that's all. But as you might be aware, and you probably are aware, when you go into court, it becomes a whole can of worms. Mm. And so it ended up with me getting back all the master recordings, which I'd never asked for. It ended up with me getting back all the publishing, which I never asked for. But what do you do? I mean, I'm not unhappy about the situation. I just regret the pain that it caused the family, because I was very close to the family.
Yeah, and so, Clair in a way takes on a new significance after that story, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, of course, you created that incredible image, that very original image, the cloth cap, the short trousers, that sort of naughty schoolboy look, almost a character out of an old silent movie, really. And Gordon Mills, your manager, he didn't approve of that, did he?
Nobody. I had it in 67 when I came to London, decided to create a character. And I used to wear a Charlie Chaplin jacket because I loved Charlie Chaplin, the Buster Keaton seasons at the Academy Cinema in London. I used to go to all those and stuff. And so I used to hire a bobtail jacket from the big costume place, which is quite funny because every time I went in to hire it on a weekend, they would say to me, what's the production for? What's the jacket? What production? I said, well, it's not for production. It's just for me on the weekend to look in the mirror with it on. And but the idea was just to dare to be different. I did, growing hair, long hair was the fashion in those days, as you know. And I just wanted to look different. And so the pudding basin haircut, the Chaplin jacket, the one trouser leg shorter than the other. I regret the short trouser picture because that's all it was. I never actually wore that anywhere for TV or anything. But so in reflection, I'm really proud of the image because I didn't look like everybody else. And as I say, nobody liked it. Nobody at my record company, CBS. And when Gordon came along, obviously with Tom Jones, What the hell am I going to do with this guy? I mean, the story is that his secretary said that when he saw the pictures, he just threw the tape in the bin. But he was curious that later they picked it up, and his wife kind of said, look, this kid is really interesting, because there was just a few songs on the tape. And I had written to him because I could have written to Robert Stigwood, who managed the Bee Gees, but that's a group. So I thought with Gordon Mills, at least he is the biggest solo artist manager in the world. So why not? So Gordon told me on, so yeah, he didn't like the image, but he was into the songs, and he said, okay, if that's what you want to do it. So
he went with it in the end.
Yeah, he went with it, and I moved on then. I mean, having had it for 3 years, by 71 I moved on to the G Sweater, having seen a Buster Keaton film, and then I just led to a situation by the mid-70s where it just looked like everybody else. I didn't need Graham to. Now I wear long hair because everybody has short hair.
Well, I don't have any hair, so I've got no choice, really. But that's another story. Now, is it right that you, when you were at college, I think it was in Swindon, wasn't it, that you were in a band? Sure. You were in a band with Rick Davies, who later went on to Supertramp.
Yeah, I mean, Rick was in the Swindon area. My first band was a school band. And why did we want to get in a band? It was the Beatles. Once the Beatles came along, I mean, with Cliff and the Shadows, we liked them, but we didn't think we could be like them. But when the Beatles came along, so young, wrote great songs. They looked different. Remember why they looked different? And so therefore, we all wanted to be in a band. So my first band was a school band. I played the drums. Then we moved up to a youth club band, getting a bit better. And I was beginning to write the odd song, which we would play. And then Rick's Blues with Rick. Rick had left art school, and I had only started my first 4 years. But we got to meet each other. I used to go up to his room that he had above his mother's hairdressing, where he had drums. And he's a fantastic musician. He was a brilliant drummer, but he was a great musician. So anyway, I joined the band as the drummer, and I wrote the songs. It's a kind of commercial aspect, very much in the way that Roger Hodgson wrote for Supertramp. Rick always wrote kind of album material. And we could have actually turned professional, but the bass player and the guitarist were on apprenticeships, and they didn't want to risk it. So that meant that Rick and I, wanting to be in the business, had to decide what to do. Rick needed to be in a band. And for me, coming to London, I just needed to be me and as a solo artist. So he went on to join a band called The Lonely Ones, which band became The Joint, which then became Supertramp. In fact, if you ever saw you wouldn't because it's no longer available, but had you ever seen the Top of the Pops of me doing Underneath the Blanket Go, my second single, I had Supertramp miming to the track with me on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll have to dig that.
Not many people know that. And we made a record. We came to London. We did 2 of my songs. At a kind of one of these where you see in the paper you can come into a studio for a few quid and cut 2 songs. So we did some of my songs. So my ability as a songwriter was growing, and Rick's ability as a fantastic musician, as well as being able to write very interesting songs, grew from there.
Well, you obviously saw the potential in him, and no doubt vice versa. So, what I love about you is your lyrics. You just have the ability to reflect everyday life in your lyrics, as you kind of mentioned earlier on. Your songs are always very observational. You must keep your eyes open and peeled the whole time and think, is there a song there? Is that how you go about it?
Well, I don't analyze it, Graham. I love the art of songwriting. I mean, it's a passion for me, and it always has been since I started. So analyzing is dangerous. So just get on and do it. I don't know why. I mean, it's interesting when Neil Diamond was asked, why he recorded Alone Again. He said he found it hard to understand how somebody at 22 or 23 years of age could write about a subject like that. And when I wrote that, I mean, I was happy. I was in the bungalow that Gordon Mills owned, and it was a good. I was happy with the song as I was with other songs writing at that time. But the observational thing could really stem if you think about for a song you would know with Nothing Rhymed. Remember in the 60s, we'd never seen on television starving children. Nobody had ever seen that. And suddenly you had this film of Biafra. And for the first time, we were all watching television and seeing these starving children. So that appears in this song. So the observational thing with me is there. And I write rather like a newspaper. I mean, the first page can be about one subject. The second page can be something else. And the common denominator is the hook line, if there is one. So that's pretty much how it goes on with me to this day. I like to pick up on things, albeit writing about things that are going on. I want to do it in a kind of subtle way, so it's not obvious. I mean, I don't want to be preaching. But I think if you can talk about the environment, you can talk about global warming, you can talk about unemployment, you can talk about these things in a kind of subtle way, just sticking it in to the song in certain parts. I mean, that's the fascination of lyric writing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I must tell you that Sophia, my producer, who put you through to me earlier on, you had a little chat with her, she said that her mother used to teach English to foreign waiters, and they weren't very interested in learning English because they, were all from the same place. They just wanted to speak their own language. And so what she did was she had an album of yours and she played them, your songs, and because she said the lyrics, the words were so clear to hear, and that's how she taught them English. So there's one for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I never did that great at English at school or anything. I mean, I don't think I was a prized student. And art, I was okay at art and stuff. But I don't know, the lyrical thing is a strange thing. I've always loved Spike Milligan, so there's an element of I love humor and to put humor in, and I like playing with words, and that stems from my love of Spike Milligan. But the other aspects is lyric writing is just. I mean, Elton doesn't write lyrics and stuff, so there's not many of us. I mean, nowadays it's 7. How many people it takes to write a song?
Oh yes, a lot on the credits sometimes.
You know, a whole page to tell you who wrote the song. But so there's very few of us who just do it on our own. But it's how it works is you come up with a melody, and a good melody will survive any length of time, which is the Irving Berlin scenario. He trunks them, and then at a point when he might need them out of the trunk, if it's a good melody, it'll survive. If you finish a lyric and don't use it, then it can be dated, because we're talking about where you get involved, talk about things that are going on around us today. Mm. And so the fascinating thing is you have a melody, and so it's time to write the lyrics because you're going to make an album, and you pick the 12 songs you're going to do, or the 12 melodies. The producers only heard 12 melodies and gibberish words. So you never really know where you're going with it. You might have a title for one or two, but 9 times out of 10 you have no idea what the subject will be when you hit it. Obviously, if it's a sort of sentimental kind of thing, it might just be a straightforward love song. And if it's raunchy, then it would just be a rock and roll thing. So
and with you, Gilbert, is it lyrics or melody that comes first?
Melody first. It will always dictate the kind of lyric, I think.
Some people do it the other way around, don't they?
Yeah. Well, Bernie Taupin, Elton doesn't write a melody until he gets the lyric from Bernie. Yeah. It's amazing. And he does it in the studio. I mean, I need to lock myself away on the top floor to hermit-like a bit, like you. Because lyric writing takes a long time, and I hear people say, "Oh, I've written 100 songs." Oh, yeah, really? It's not. It takes a while. I mean, and the fascinating thing about writing lyrics is that's the Leonard Cohen thing. You end up writing more than you need. So, for example, you'll start off with an empty page, struggle a bit the first couple of days, then you get into it, and by the time you've really got into it, needing only 3 verses and a middle section, you've ended up writing 8 verses and 4 middle eighths, which you're never going to use because you get so into it. That's another fascinating thing about getting so involved in the subject of the song you're writing.
Yeah, so you get carried away, so you have to pricey it all down.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Gilbert, let's talk about the Essential Collection then, because there's so much great music here. I think it's a couple of CDs, isn't it? About 42 tracks, including your last top 20 single. We had a bit of it in the montage there, What's in a Kiss. Although there's a different version of that, isn't there? I think it's a guitar version.
But it's the same vocal. It's the exact same vocal and piano as on the version that was put out by CBS. It's just more simple with almost a guitar, with a piano playing almost what the guitars would be doing.
All right. Now let's talk about Gary Barlow's Crooner Sessions, which he's been releasing on YouTube. And you and Gary sang Alone Again naturally. And there's you, I guess, at home in New Jersey in your studio. There's Gary in his. Yeah. And it's just great. I mean, it comes over so well. It's a lovely, lovely idea. How did you two get together? Did he give you a call?
What I can't believe it's had over 2 million.
Wow.
2 million people. It's unbelievable. I can't quite tell that. I mean, it's worked out really well. I have a purpose-built recording studio here, so I just did my vocal and piano here, and we send it to Gary. Then he does it in his studio, and we put it out. And the reaction has been fantastic. I'm amazed that so many people have watched it, and it's still going on. It's over 2 million as of yesterday. I mean, it's incredible.
And yes, it's a split screen. Both of you split there and singing that song, and it really works well. And did you know each other prior to it? Did you know Gary? You didn't?
No,
because he's had some other great sessions. The Crooner Sessions with Rod Stewart, Rick Astley, Chris Martin, and I love the one. Have you seen the one with Sheridan Smith?
No, he did that 2 weeks ago. It's
very funny.
And I think he was doing the latest one. I think is Gabrielle. Is it?
It could well be. I don't know, but the one with Sheridan Smith, she beams all the way through it, Gilbert, because she's so happy to be doing this song, which was "Endless Love" with Gary. So, the Essential Collection, 42 tracks, wow. And I'm going to play one of them now. Do you remember I mentioned earlier there was one that was left off the montage, which I've always
I'm
loved.
kind of curious myself now.
I bet you are, yeah. Now, it's We Will.
No, We Will is there.
Yeah, no, was it in there? I don't think it was in the montage.
No, We Will is on CD 2, track 2.
Oh, no, I know it's on your Essential Collection. No, I just meant it wasn't in the montage. I left it out because that's the one I want to play. Now, I think there's a story about this, Gilbert. Didn't Andy Williams want to cover We Will, but he wanted to change one of the lyrics in it? Tell us about that.
Well, I was in America in the sort of early 70s and stuff, and received a call from Andy. He'd actually been a big fan of mine because he'd recorded Alone Again. He recorded another song of mine called Who Was It? So he was a big fan of my songs, and I met him at the Grammys when he was presenting it and stuff. So he rang me up and said how much he loved We Will, and I would love to record it, but he wanted to change the words, and I thought, oh, God, here we go. But it's the Bagsy being in goal.
Oh, I Bagsy being in goal. It's a great line.
Back to what we were saying earlier. I mean, I like to feel that I'm lyrically, I write the way people talk, so I like putting in things that are colloquial. That the way we speak, because after all, I'm not an American, so I don't want to be talking about LA or New York. I can talk about Surrey or London or whatever and use those words. So the Bagsy being in goal, I love that. So
I'll play that in just a second. But I just remembered actually because I've got this a 30-second clip of you singing with Gary. All right, so this is Alone Again, naturally, as seen by over 2 million now apparently.
Amazing. Yeah.
Here we go, Gilbert and Gary.
Despite encouragement from me, no words were ever spoken. And when she passed away, I cried and cried all day, alone again, naturally. Alone again, naturally.
Oh, thanks, Gilbert.
There you go. Thanks, Gary.
Oh, thanks,
Until the
mate.
next time.
See you soon. Thank you.
It really works very well. And, some unusual and beneficial things come out of lockdown, and that was one of them, those crooner sessions, you and Gary Barlow. Wonderful. So I've got to play this record. I built it up, so much. We Will. And thankfully, you've kept in the I Bagsy being in goal. Gilbert, I'm going to play this. It's part of your Essential Collection, 2 CDs. This is on it, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for all the history.
Graham, nice talking to you, and look forward to meeting up with you maybe one day.
One day. It would have been lovely if you were here. It would have been, mind you, it's a long way from Jersey, isn't it? All the very best to you. Keep safe. Thank you for your company, and thank you for this wonderful record. Again, very observational. We Will.
It's over now. You've had your fun. Get up them stairs. Go on quickly, don't run. Take off your shoes, the both of yous, and leave them down outside the door. Turn the landing light off, no wait, leave it on. It might make the night that much easier to be gone, and in the morning we'll be wide awake and eating snowflakes, oh, as opposed to those flakes. We will. We will. That afternoon we spent the day with Uncle Frank, remember, and his wife Auntie May. Well, do you know, since then I've received up to 4 letters, all of which repeat the same. They say thrilled to bits, can't believe you came. We've relived it both over time and time again, and if there's ever a chance or even half, you might be our way. But would you promise to stay? We will. else you've suffered the affliction within. Oh, it's no use in an ending to proclaim from the start that the moral of the story's to begin. On Sunday next, if the weather holds, we'll have that game, but I bagsy bean in goal. Not because I'm good, or because I think I should. It's just that, well, at my age, I think standing still would really suit me best. Do we all agree? Hands up those who do, hands up those who don't. I see, well, in that case, will we please be kind enough, if not on Sunday, to go to Mass on Monday? We will, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, it's just a terrific song, isn't it? Hope you agree. We will, from my guest, Gilbert O'Sullivan.